Good morning and welcome to another special edition of Judging by the Cover, where we are looking at the game of the year. That's right, Wednesdays on this month, I have been doing extra reviews for nominees of the Game of the Year awards. And now that the Game of the Year awards have taken place, I can finally look at the winner of the Game of the Year awards. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I know it came from a French studio. But this thing, it apparently not just nominated, won 9 categories, including the overall baseline of Game of the Year. Now, at first, for some of those categories, I was like, okay, without knowing anything about the game, I kind of wish that other games had gotten like some of those other categories. Like I know just last week we looked, or was it last week? Just recently we looked at Dispatch, and I thought Dispatch looked incredibly unique for the type of spin it was doing, at least from a consumer perspective, having not played it or looked too much into it outside of what the store page presented. I thought that it looked like a pretty unique spin. Of course, maybe the actual game maybe fell short in the eyes of the judges a little bit. And Claire Expedition or Claire Obscur did end up taking the indie category and the debut indie category, and I think debut category maybe could have gone the other route, but that was based on information that I had before I've actually looked at this game. Now I know as a game of the year, it is incredibly popular. It was a big game that came out this year. It's just that it had completely flown under my radar, considering that a lot of these AAA titles I don't actually look into personally unless it's like a big property that I am familiar with. And now it is indie, not AAA, but it has the look of a AAA studio game as far as the graphics is concerned, which we will be getting into. Uh, that even then, I believe that the indie studio did have a larger budget and a lot of funding to be able to push something like this, which indie studio does not necessarily mean the size of the budget. It's basically, are they one of those big megaliths? And an indie studio could easily cease to become indie if they get absorbed or become one of the big mainstream. So I know the term indie could be a little fluid depending on how you judge it and how you define it in the market. But anyways, we're going to be looking at Expedition 33. Now, just as a little preface here, I do not have any formal journalistic credentials, so I feel like I am uniquely qualified to pass this judgment on the hard work and dedication of other people. We're With that, let's go ahead and dive in to the Clair Obscur. Now we're looking at a game that won Game of the Year, Best Direction, Best Narrative, Best Art Direction, Best Score and Music, Best Performance with Jennifer English, who celebrity names just completely wash over my head. I don't typically recognize most of them as it is. Best independent, best debut indie, and best role playing game. So those are like all the categories we got here. So with that in mind, we're going to be looking at the store page here and see just it like if we think that it's warranted. Now without even looking into every other game in all of those categories, I do want to judge Clair Obscur and rate it based on what it does on the store page here. So I am not going to be judging whether I think it deserves that game of the game of the year spot. But if the store page does its job and if the game looks well presented and if the game looks good in its own right. So with that, we're going to jump straight into our store description once I find out where my mouse is on the computer. There it is. Now, we do see here they do have several bundles, and it's actually on sale. Oh, at the time of recording and releasing this, it is on sale, but the sale ends very soon. So if you're watching this more than one day after this episode airs, uh, maybe wait. If you typically wait for sales, you might be waiting for a little bit longer. But we do have, oh, look at that. Bonus tracks and Verso's drafts of the original soundtrack. So that's kind of cool. Now, the original soundtrack is showing a little expensive. We'll get into the expensive stuff later. Let's see. Steam Deck Top Played is on here. Now, there is a digital deluxe edition, so let's briefly touch on this since it is the first part of the store page. The digital deluxe edition, I believe they're selling for $11, and it says that it includes Well, $11 on top of the base price. So it says it includes the base game with the deluxe edition, although you can buy the deluxe upgrade separately if you already got the base game. So it includes the base game and it includes the Flowers collection, 6 outfits and hairstyles inspired by the flowers of Lumiere, along with 6 additional Gommage outfits variations, one for each playable character. Then there's also a Clair custom outfit for Mael, and Obscur, a custom outfit for Gustav. So you're basically that they're selling a $12 uh deluxe package, which is just costumes, but it does seem like you get, if I'm reading this right, 12 total outfits split between the 6 characters plus 2 bonus outfits for what I presume are the primary 2 lead characters. So kind of a cool little aspect in that regard. Now that is something to say, like, it I don't know if this is just a me preference, but I feel like selling just a costume pack to throw on top of the characters is kind of like meh. But at the same time, if you're going to have a digital deluxe edition like this, I think I almost prefer it to be something cosmetic like this that it doesn't promise you like missing like gameplay or storyline that is missing from the base game, especially released at launch. Like if you're going to release this kind of digital deluxe thing at launch to maybe try and get a little extra cash flow coming into your studio, doing it this way for cosmetics feels like probably the best way to do it, even though I personally am not the kind of person that would care to buy the costumes. And if the costumes on the screen here are anything to look at, the costumes, they do look good. They give off a very like Wonderland or like circus performance, like performer kind of vibe. And considering some of the visuals that we'll see in the trailers and the screenshots, we're going to get to those. It does seem fitting, like it could actually really fit into the setting. So, about this game, year by year, she erases us. Once a year, the paintress, and now if you're not reading along, that is paintress, not spelled as in painting, but spelled as in pain, as in getting hurt. Paintress. Wakes up and paints upon her monolith, paints her cursed number, and everyone past that age turns to smoke and fades away. Year by year, that number ticks down, and more of us are erased. Tomorrow shall wake and paint 33, and tomorrow we depart on our final mission, destroy the paintress so she can never paint death again. We are Expedition 33. Clair Obscur. Expedition 33 is a groundbreaking turn based RPG with unique real time mechanics, making battles more immersive and addictive than ever. Explore a fantasy world inspired by Belle Epoque, France. Inspired by Belle Epoque, France, in which you battle devastating enemies. Belle Epoque, France. Let's see. Belle Epoque, France. That's the thing to find here. That is something that is Belle Epoque. Oh, okay. So it is an era of French. Just a quick little synopsis here. French for beautiful era, a period in French and European history from roughly 1871 to 1914, characterized by optimism, peace, economic prosperity. That's a kind of a visual deviation from what they're telling us here with the sense of ominous, like bad omen looming over society and reality. Artistic flourishing, particularly in Paris. Artistically, it was a time of great innovation, seeing the rise of Impressionism, Post Impressionism, and Art Nouveau, alongside major developments in graphic arts like color lithography with artists like Monet, Degas, Toulouse Lautrec, okay, a bunch of names that I also, and Mucha, creating iconic works that captured the era's vibrant popular culture, cafes, and technological advancements like the Eiffel Tower. Okay, so visually, it's inspired from that era of French artistry. Honestly, not a bad decision. And we do see in the trailers like the visual flair of the environments. is genuinely breathtaking. So the fact that it's coming from that kind of historical perspective is kind of cool. Reactive turn based combat. In this evolution of JRPGs, real time actions enhance the heart of turn based combat. Craft unique builds for your expeditioners that fit your playstyle via gear, stats, skills, and character synergies. Open an active dimension in combat. Dodge, parry, and counter in real time. Chain combos by mastering attack rhythms and target enemy weak points using a free aim system. So this seems like kind of an interesting thing. Just from the screenshots and the trailers, the combat screen looked like it gave a very Final Fantasy inspired vibe, particularly the 3D Final Fantasies. I did get a little bit of the vibe of Final Fantasy X. Now, that is a game that I have not played the whole way through, but I've dabbled a little bit into 10 before, several years back when it was on PlayStation 2. And like some of the menu structure seemed a little reminiscent of that. Attack commands seem to be kind of placed in like you see in the Persona games, and the turn order looked like it had that Final Fantasy X situation going on. But the fact that you have a mode where you can slip out of the turn base and put in actual attack commands, that does seem like a little bit of an evolution of certain Final Fantasy class builds. Like I think it was there were a couple of classes across the Final Fantasy series that had that kind of put in button combinations for your special moves kind of thing. So it seems like it's an evolution of that. But just based on the description here and based on my foreknowledge of other games mechanics, the visual style of it is definitely cool. You get that parry, even if it was just the baseline, like time your button press with your attack for bonuses. I mean, we've also seen that in Mario RPG, Paper Mario, and other RPG titles, but to see it slip into like an actual real time mode in the battle is also pretty neat. Tomorrow comes. Let's see. With only 1 year left to live, join Gustav, Mael, and their fellow expeditioners as they embark on a desperate quest to break the Paintress's cycle of death. Follow the trail of previous expeditioners and discover their fate. Get to know the members of Expedition 33 as they learn to work together against impossible odds. Now, this is kind of a cool thing in terms of the structure of the journey, where you're going through and you're following in the footsteps of heaven knows how many previous expeditions. Like, we're told that this is Expedition 33, but this is a backwards count of the expedition. When I first saw the title, I was like, okay, so there's been like 32 groups before us. It's like, no, 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 no. They, this Paintress, and we're not told. I'm sure in the game they tell us how much this has happened, but outside of the game, we don't see that. We don't know, like, did she start at 99? Did she start at 50? Did this start at 200? Like, did it start at an age and a number that was so high that nobody really noticed it was going on until it started just kind of going too late? But you're following in the footsteps of previous expeditions, so who knows? There might actually be some encounters and some boss fights that you maybe almost skip over because other expeditions have passed through. I don't know how much the environment and the world resets after each failed expedition. A hauntingly beautiful world. Explore an enchanting realm populated by surreal adversaries. Wander through breathtaking landscapes from the island of visages to the forgotten battlefield, discovering secrets and hidden quests along the way. Okay, so there are some side quests and stuff for you completionists out there. I might be a little guilty of some of that myself. Find allies of fortune in Creatures of Legend. Recruit special companions to access new travel methods and discover secret areas in the world map. Okay, that extra like travel things like, ships, airships, chocobos, different kinds of mounts and stuff. Lamia in Dragon Warrior 3. Like there's so many things that doesn't seem really too innovative, considering that so many games have different methods of travel across the world. But, note it here that you can find secrets with those things. So that's kind of a cool thing here. Maybe those side quests will lead to some extra epic armor or epic equipment or something. experience the debut game from Sandfall Interactive, fully realized in Unreal Engine 5 with stunning graphics and a heartbreaking soundtrack. The soundtrack, that is something else that just absolutely really nailed the point in the atmosphere. It does feature depictions of violence, blood, suicide imagery, and some players may find that disturbing. So, be aware of the content, like when you're getting into if you have a little bit of a weak constitution in some regards. Some of the visuals did seem a little not supremely graphic, but it did show us a little bit of an air of the violence and the just the brutality of it. There was some blood splatters going on some of the character faces, character models. So that's something to keep an eye out for if you're sensitive to those kinds of things. Now, this is Expedition 33. That's the store description. We get a lot of information there. Next up, we're going to take a look at the screenshots and then the trailers. So, the screenshots we see here the incredible landscape with a bit of what looks like a shattered world just kind of converging on a point in the tower here. I do remember the shattered world and the point of convergence kind of being a main theme of Haven when I played that. But of course, this one is far more active and story like maybe not more story driven, but a more epic story format than that. And oh wow, the second screenshot depicts an obliterated Eiffel Tower. Now, if I had a nickel for every game I've looked at this year where they obliterated the Eiffel Tower, I would have two nickels, which is not a lot, but it is really freaking weird that it happened twice. The rest of the city around it, it looks like it's maybe a location that you do actually go to, so you get to probably hopefully you get to explore that and get some nice encounters in there. We get some close-ups. I did mention that there was some bloody situation going on with here. The characters are clearly having a rough go of it. The fight sequences, oh my gosh, the still of the fights here are also pretty incredible with these monster encounters. The monsters do look large scale and pretty inventive. We have a nice little shot here, another close up of four of our party members. We are told that there's six main characters. We have four of them here. We have some of the fight screen here. Now, this is something that I did highlight a little bit from the description here. Looks like I think Persona lays their screen out like this, and it does clearly show your input commands. What button to press for certain things. That way, you don't have to like go. It probably helps with faster inputs this way, having it tied to your button presses for a controller as opposed to having to like move a cursor around. So I do like that with the menu. We see that the battle has three characters laid out here. The mana bar looks like it's at least what is typically referred to as the mana bar. It looks like it has these charges that probably charges up over time or over turns, as opposed to a typical like MP meter. I do kind of like that. We do see the prompt here showing stains. Gain elemental stain by casting spells, consume them to unleash the mayhem. That kind of just the wording and the structure of that saying like, hey, when you cast spells, you basically charge up elemental affinities or elemental levels so that you can unleash the stains. It kind of reminds me of the Jin system from the Game Boy Advance RPG. Shit, the name escapes me, but those of you in the know, you know what I'm talking about, where you equip the Jin and then you would unleash the Jin, but when the Jin are unleashed, they're not equipped to like when they're equipped to you, your stats go up, but when you unleash them, your class and stats and spells might change, but then you can cast your unleashed Jins as massive summons was a thing. So Stains seems to be kind of a take on that, where you cast your spells and the elemental overload can turn into devastating bonus effects. On the left side of the screen, we see another little thing here. We do see what I've seen in several games as a turn order. I mentioned Final Fantasy X where they did this. Pokemon Legends Arceus did this, where you could see the turn order on the side of the screen. And we do see we have two of the player characters here. We see the monster, what appears to be the monster, the third in the turn order. When I see this, I'm wondering if the game does have a kind of mechanic where you, depending on your actions and what you do on the turn, if it will manipulate the turn order so that, when you unleash maybe extra devastating blows, it takes that turn order and pushes you further down the turn bracket, or if you deal a devastating enough blow to the enemy, you can cause them to stumble on their turn and push them down the turn order. I do hope that seeing this on the menu, that is a thing in here. I don't remember seeing that in the description or in the trailers at all, but it is something to consider. Hopefully they have that, or even if not, at the very least, you do see the turn order so that you can kind of plan out, okay, how much time do I have before the enemy gets their next big action? We do see another battle screen here. We see on the side of the screen here, it shows gradient, parry, dodge, and jump. So this might be some of that real-time factor in here where depending on, it shows you what buttons get what effect so that you can try and get those kind of dodge, jump, other effects. And if these open up other attack opportunities, that could be a cool thing. Like maybe dodge is just a full damage avoidance, maybe jump sets up a follow-up for a counter attack. Parry could be a thing to try and make the opponent stumble so that their next turn gets canceled or something like that. This is speculation just based on what I'm seeing here. It's not necessarily indicative of the gameplay itself. But again, it is cool to see that these are multiple options shown on the screen with what buttons trigger those, as opposed to previous games that had this kind of real-time mechanic, real-time timing mechanic in turn-based combat. Like I've said before, Mario RPG and the Paper Mario series had this, where you could push a single button to do a parry or to get bonus actions with your attack. Here, it seems much more uh much more fleshed out, where they have a lot of options with that, and maybe different options are going to be more effective against different enemies. We do have another close-up of the character here. We have more absolutely visually stunning art. Even if this wasn't part of a video game sequence, I'd be like, you know what? That is a badass wallpaper. Wallpaper. Just putting something like that on your on your desktop as a background, or on a wall painting or something, or on a tabletop playmat like card game players have. It is just some stunning visuals with that, with the character position, the depth and everything. Just as an artistic composition, this is incredibly satisfying. We have more of that going on here. This one looks like another thing that would have come right off of a tabletop gamer's playmat. And oh yeah, after that it does go into the trailers. So we do have, a lot of stuff going on there. We do have multiple trailers here. There are one, two, three, four, five trailers total. So with that, what what do we have going on here? Now, each trailer does have its own little thing that it shows. The first one here is the thank you trailer. Possibly, part of the whole nomination process. Thanks for the nomination kind of thing. We see characters in motion. We see you moving around. We see stunning visuals and landscapes and monsters all over the place. Like, I cannot stress enough how visually appealing this is. We do see the combat screens in motion, so they are emphasizing some of these real-time situations here. Everything is just laid out incredibly well. And it's just oozing Alice in Wonderland kind of vibes on some of these. Between the landscapes, the characters' costuming, they even showcase a photo mode that pauses the game so that you can get, okay, like those things earlier that looked like just incredible wallpapers. You can go in the game into a photo mode and pause whatever singular moment in the game you want. At least it looks that way in the battle, and zoom in, get a close up, get whatever visual you want, and see exactly how close and how much care was put into rendering these characters in these sequences. And Maybe if something comes out looking a little janky, you can also get a photo of those. And honestly, those are also kind of visually entertaining. But the fact that you can get that kind of close up situation with the game is incredible, that you can pick out whatever singular favorite moment you want in the game and have a snapshot immortalizing that for your own personal, visual collection. We have a launch trailer as well. And like I said, there's 5 trailers of these. We're not going to go into too much detail about them, but the trailers, they do show you bits of maybe not storyline. Like the most story that they're showing is that the number is ticking down to 33. People are getting wiped out. We do see that the main character had some kind of a close bond here with somebody that was just that 1 year older. So they ended up getting faded out of existence. We see more battle screens. Again, it's just the fact that the visuals are front they are frontmost here. Stuff going on. Hold on. Okay, that I wonder if there's actually like specters of people that have vanished throughout the story, because some of the characters are looking a little familiar through there. It's just, you know what? I can't gush enough over how satisfying some of these trailers are. I highly recommend that anybody out there go check them out yourselves. We get more shots of the environment, the Eiffel Tower going on, and a very diverse range of environments, ranging from colorful to bleak. Interesting characters and NPCs that you meet. Like there's one somewhere over here that looks like they're trying to book passage across some massive expanse that that this creature is able to traverse. We do see a little bit of a snippet back here where they emphasize the paintress. So if you didn't read the description of the game, it does tell us the paintress must fall. They cap off one of those with the pre-order trailer. There's also, again, like I said, there's 5 of these. There's a cast reveal and an Expedition 33 reveal trailer. So these are other trailers that have come out during the development of the game before the release. So something looked at. They each one shows something a little bit different. It's not too much repeated stuff. I mean, I guess overall, it's like they're not repeating the footage, but it all kind of feeds into that same vibe, that same atmosphere. Overall, I think the trailers do a wonderful job of showing the gameplay, the emotion behind the characters, and the environments in motion, and the music. The music is absolutely gorgeous and hauntingly. The fact that it won Best Score in Music without actually listening to the scores and the music behind every nominee of the category, I can confidently say that it was a deserved nomination. It is the kind of soundtrack where it's like, you know what? Just give me that soundtrack, put that on a playlist. I'll listen to that at my downtime at work, cuz it has that like haunting atmosphere to it that isn't necessarily a banger, that like a banger or a bop that you want to dance to, but it just has that sense of like a little bit of a sense of awe and dread just soaking through it. The art direction coming through with the visuals, both in still and in movement, incredible. The performance. Now the trailers do show us a very limited snapshot of the performances, but it's at least enough to be like, okay, I could see myself wanting to follow these characters and their story. Now, to analyze the game itself based on what we had going on, and just going to let this kind of play in the background. The game itself, visually incredible. The game mechanics for turn-based RPG do look incredibly engaging, especially with the elements of real-time factors slipped into it so that you can get more options in that kind of thing. I know some games have done a little bit of innovation with their turn-based mechanics. Bravely Default is kind of a standout in that, where charge or spend you could charge or spend turns basically to get extra actions. Other ones, like I said, with Final Fantasy X, it shows you the turn order. I'm hoping there's a mechanic in here to manipulate turn order. Otherwise, I don't see too much point in showing the turn order that way. But even then, just knowing that to plan out your actions can also be kind of cool, even if you don't have the ability to manipulate that turn order. And then the kind of Paper Mario or Mario RPG esque real time triggers and timing to your battles can also be pretty cool. I think a lot of other games, like the South Park games, the South Park RPGs also had that with button timing for your bonus effects and stuff. And having that drastically expanded on where you get those real time button presses, the real time timing to try and get more variety in your reactions as opposed to just a block or just a counterattack is pretty neat. All of that said, going in, that's the graph. Visually, it's incredible. The sound, the gameplay looks incredibly engaging. I know that engagement in a turn-based RPG is something that honestly is it has its fans, but I feel like in the modern age, a lot of turn-based RPGs have really had to innovate because the classics like the old Final Fantasies and Dragon Quests and things of that Breath of Fire famous series have really had to try and do things to in more recent titles so that the traditional if they keep traditional turn-based combat they've had to kind of innovate it in a way that keeps you invested in it so that you don't just kind of like fall asleep while you're stuck in a menu waiting for the next round to happen. um at least if you're playing when tired. I don't know if everyone plays when they're tired or when they're laying down and go to bed, but on a handheld sometimes it's kind of easy. The UI does look. Now we don't see much of the menus, like the stat menus and stat screens. We don't see any of that. That is something that I would have liked to see here. We do see plenty of battle screen interface. We see where your character overlays are, so that you can see your hit points and your mana. We do see where your attack prompts, your attack options and turn prompts are on there. We see the real time stuff. We see the turn order. So the battle interface looks incredibly clear, descriptive, and not obstructive to the screen. Like you still get the full visual impact of everything on the screen without having to do some kind of like massive menu overlaying things and kind of distracting from the visuals. They do try to keep those visuals front and center so that you can see everything going on. What I don't see is the actual stat screens. Now, maybe they didn't want to show that. Like they want you to be able to go in and learn the stat screens without having that preconceived notion of it. But I do personally like when these store pages at least show you at least one character's stat screen in the menu so that you can see like okay, so they have like uh strength, intelligence, vitality, and then you have your separate like attack and defense. You can kind of guess how those things lay out before going and buying the game and all that. Now obviously a lot of times those munders, the I can't talk right today. Those numbers can be very esoteric and hard to parse out exactly how much of a number translates into how much effect in the game. But at the same time, it's still satisfying to see numbers. You like to see numbers. You like to see numbers go up. You like to get that little ding. So I would have preferred if there was at least one screen here that showed the downtime menu where you can go in, you look at your item menu, you look at your character screen outside of combat. It would have been nice to see like that, or maybe the equipment layout, so you can see how many different types of equipment you have for attaching to each character. Because sometimes you have games where you get equipment slots for head, body, each individual arm, equipment slot for the legs, 2 or 5 ring slots, an amulet slot, other accessory slot. Like you get so many slots. Other games give you one weapon slot, one armor slot and maybe an accessory slot. So depending on the game and how many equipment slots you get, that can also kind of dictate how much time or how much attention you're going to be paying to the overall thing. And the fact that we don't see any of that in the store page, that it just rubs me the wrong way. Maybe for other people it's a non-issue, but it is something that I would like to see in a character screen on the store page before buying a game. So I get an idea of how much equipment I'm going to be juggling. Now this is, I'm only looking at this on the Steam. I'm not checking to see. Now it is showing us on Steam that's PS5 as well. So I haven't looked into what other systems it's available for on, but we're looking at Steam here. So overall, the game looks incredible. It sounds incredible. I do wish they showed us more menus as opposed to just the battle screen. But it's not the worst thing in the world. Everything else looks so incredibly competent. I feel like I can kind of overlook it. So now for the pricing. This is the part that we all like to talk about. The base game is $50 up front, currently on sale at the time of this episode for $40. But if you're watching this after the fact, it's probably gone back up to full price at 50. But $50, considering AAA games are running at $60 or higher in today's market, a game that looks like this, that looks like it offers um, a massive story, rich characters, incredible combat for $50 seems like a fair price. It's a little higher than I'm going to budget for than I would budget for something in general. Now, something like this, if I had the budget to just go ahead and throw at it without, making sure that I got everything else covered, I would hands down be willing to pay that $50 for it. Uh with with my personal situation though, I would personally be waiting for a bigger sale because a lot of times I don't have a ton of time to put into a lot of different games. Considering other projects that I have constantly going on, I had just finished recording a Stardew series that's going to be going on this channel for a while from now. But there are other projects I have lined up that I'm wanting to do. So the fact that this is $50, it's like, okay, I don't know if I could put in the time. I personally might not be able to put in the time, but I do believe that it is, from the store pages that I've seen here, it looks worth that $50. And honestly, it made that game of the year across 9 categories. So it seems like the awards actually do agree. Now, there has been criticism, I am aware, of people saying like, "Oh, it doesn't deserve all these nominees." Games like a whole bunch of people have never even heard of it. I was in that camp. I have not heard of this game until the Game of the Year awards. Now, that said, I'm not saying that Game of the Year should have gone to a game that I knew about because I only have so much time in the day. I don't have time to be keeping up with each and every little thing that comes out and goes into the market, considering the sheer quantity and variety of everything that's out there. But the fact that this one, like, look into the store page, I can see why it got these categories. Now, I did mention before there is a deluxe edition upgrade for 11 or $12. There it is. Okay, the digital upgrade, $11. Also currently on sale for $8.79, but that's $11 full, or you get the deluxe edition where it has it pre-packaged for $60. Now, right now, at the time of this, it would just be cheaper to buy Expedition 33 and the upgrade separately because each one is on sale for 20% off, while the deluxe edition is not on sale to match with that. I do wish that they would, when they do sales like this, I do wish that the deluxe edition package would reflect the sale price as well. It would just make more sense to do that. But right now, that one is higher. I'm not going to weigh that on it too much here because I know I harped on it with some other games, but so much else about the game is incredibly positive. We also have multiple bundle options where you can get it with one of many other games that I have never looked at. I don't know anything about them. Sifu, Windblown. Honestly, just from the little screenshots, they do look kind of cool. By the Altars and Clair Obscur. The Altars looks like it might be visually closer to what Clair Obscur is trying to do. But the pricing, again, it's very similar along the pricing where the individual games are discounted for, roughly what you would be expecting to get the Clair Obscur for. $50 bundle, $53 bundle, $58 bundle for games that would otherwise be decently expensive in their own right. There is also a $20 soundtrack. Now, most of the time on Steam, when I'm seeing soundtracks, they're close to a $10 range. The fact that it's a $20 soundtrack with two free bonus editions here. A special thank you. We present Novies and Lumiere bonus edition and another free soundtrack draft here. So that's kind of cool to have that there. But the $20 soundtrack, it seems a little on the expensive side for the soundtrack. But from what I've heard on the game and the fact that it is a larger, more epic fantasy RPG, I could see the soundtrack being maybe a little more warranted for that. But no, that we're not judging the soundtrack too much. It's just kind of a little add-on where you don't even have to buy that to really enjoy the game. All right. So that's everything laid out on the table for Clair Obscur. The pricing, I believe, is absolutely fair for what it is. Personally, I'd be waiting for a sale just because of how my own schedule and budget fits into the situation, because I personally try to look for things on sale. But for people that have the time and the budget to go ahead and drop $50 on something like this, it does seem like it would be worth it from what I'm seeing on here and the fact that we got those Game of the Awards situations going on. Especially considering, this one getting game of the year, the overall game of the year over big AAA studios that release 60, 70, $80, $100 games in the modern market. And those are games that also often have other paid DLC attached to them. I know I've looked at a couple of titles where you get DLC that jacks the price up higher than the base game. Now, I don't even know if there's DLC on the horizon for this or if it's just meant to be this singularly uh all-inclusive single game that you get. It would be cool to see that and not have to worry about DLC. If there are any updates, I hope it's just like little touch-ups to make sure that things are working properly, because sometimes things do slip by in testing and when things go to market and have like a player base of thousands or millions of players across the world is going to be much more capable of finding problems than a team of 5, 10, 15 debuggers, even 100 debuggers. But, that's just kind of a nice little thing with the modern game market because of the internet and all that kind of thing. They can push out a patch to kind of get things going. It I would even be interested to see like what kind of bugs or little things that people find, or if it is really as polished as it was. Now, this came out in April of this year, so it's been out for a while now. It's not exactly brand new, but this is something you know what? In fact, I'm doing it on camera right now. It looks incredible. Where's the wish list button? There's my wish list button. I'm adding it to the wish list right now to keep an eye on it in case it goes on a better sale, because I would like to experience this. I've been looking into more story-driven games and some RPGs. I do have a penchant for some old style RPGs. So seeing some of the stuff they do with the newer RPG, personally, I feel like that's a good thing. I know I'm kind of rambling at this point, but holy shit, this game just looks that incredible. Like, I can't gush over the store page enough and what they presented to us as buyers. At such, I think on a personal score, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. Now, that is an almost perfect score in my book. I'm not marking it off too much for those problems that I raised earlier. Like I said, having like if they showed the character menu and the equipment menu, that would be nice to see. Um, I think it does an incredibly good job of everything that it set out to do here and everything that they went to present. It looks from the store page like it earned at least some of those Game of the Year awards. There are some things that I have looked at where I think that maybe other games could have won those categories, but a lot of times I am basing that on myself only having looked at the game through doing this series. I've said it before, I don't have the time and the budget for every single game that is out there as much as I would like to actually experience everything that I look at on this show. Uh, but based on what I've looked at, like I said, I feel like Dispatch could have maybe won out an indie or a debut indie category, but maybe the actual full game didn't measure up in the eyes of the judges. And you know what? Since I haven't actually played the game, I only have a very peripheral knowledge having looked at it on this show. Silk Song, similarly, I've only looked at it on this show. I haven't actually played Silk Song to see, like, okay, it if I'm going to properly judge something on that game of the year thing, I feel like having played the game is probably an important aspect of that. That said, who would I suggest this game to? Now, if you don't enjoy RPGs and stuff like that, maybe not your speed, but if you like RPGs and you like those big epic fantasy stories with some brooding, some stuff like that, like if you are a longtime fan of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest types of games, this is probably the exact kind of maybe less Dragon Quest, but more Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy around the 7 to 13 range. If you liked any of those, this is probably the kind of game that is up your alley. I know 14 is the MMO, 15 is the J-pop boy band road trip that runs a little different mechanically, but maybe 15 would also fit into this a little bit if you like those kinds of things. Um, I do kind of get story vibes that feel reminiscent of Final Fantasy 8 and 10 with this very Alice in Wonderland setting. And again, the fact that they showcase multiple scenes with that obliterated Eiffel Tower, that's like, oh wow, so are are games in 2025 just hating the Eiffel Tower all of a sudden? I don't know. Now, and again, I think that's one of my main concerns, or not even concern, just the little thing that marks off the from being a perfect 10 is the lack of showing the in-game menus. I do like when the games show you the menu so you can kind of look at it and parse out, like, okay, what am I looking at? Like, what can I expect to see in there that I have to work with? um but the fact that they do show as much of the battle screen as they do is also incredible. The story looks fantastic. It looks like the exact kind of thing where if I'm at work and I've got like a nice epic fantasy novel in front of me, this is something that I would enjoy reading. I would enjoy seeing this as a series or a movie, whatever the kind of the thing with the story is. But since it's presented as a game, I would actually love to play this game, in all honesty.